What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Lions Nation Unite. I am Spencer Exter of the Woodward Heavyweights. He is Joseph Dion, and that is the man who needs no introduction, the legend in the Detroit Lions, pride of Lions, Herman Moore, number 84 himself. Appreciate you guys joining us. Make sure you all smash that like button in the chat and get this stream going. We'll get some questions in the chat if you got for Herman or for Dion or for myself, and we'll answer those. But gentlemen, how you guys doing tonight? Appreciate you. Good to see you guys tonight.
Oh man, I had to. My heart's back in my chest, so I'm good.
Yeah,
I'm better.
What a game! What a game! I mean, Deanna, what was your reaction to that game?
Yeah, it's the most ridiculous game. I thought the Titans game was the weirdest game I've ever seen, and then this game happened. But I will say, shout out to H-Man for this, man. The hookup yesterday, like that environment, like I came in and I'm thinking like, okay, if I'm gonna be in a movie theater, like how's this gonna be? Like, cause I can hear everybody in the movie theater when I get hype. But in that room, it was like so big where I could get hype, but I still didn't feel like I was like over top of other people. So the energy was real, especially when we started to make some noise, man. H-Man. It felt in a way like I was kind of in a stadium, and I missed that. I haven't been in a stadium in a minute. So thank you for that, by the way, if you want to give a shout out to what was going on last night.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, man, let's give a shout out to Imagine Theater in Royal Oak. I want to say thank you to Mr. Glantz, Paul Glantz, for giving us the opportunity to be there. I want to say thank you to Jordan and Melissa, to Frankie, to all their team, man, that took care of us. And that, I'm telling the Lion fans, if next time we do something like that, I know it was a late game, it was a night game. We had a lot of people that showed up for the VIP part of it. And then I know a lot of people had to get back for kids to go to school, plus, get up and go to work. But I'm telling you, that is the environment to just have as just kind of a side piece that we went over to be like, hey, this is what we're doing afterwards. It was absolutely fantastic. I love that environment. We're going to do it again. And next time we do it, I'm telling you, don't miss out. You guys missed out if you weren't there. I understand it was late though.
And what a game to choose. The most high leverage, insane ending, comeback of the century, and just a great game to choose to go there for. Shout out to Imagine for having Lions Nation Unite in the house. It looked amazing. And shout out to everybody in the chat. We got the Dull Spoon, Dr. Detroit, Kane, Prest, a couple people in there getting some questions early. We're going to get into those. But before we get into anything, we got to start with the man himself, Pastor Bates. You can get the shirt at Lions Nation Unite now. It's out there. Pastor Bates going out there, knocking down the game-tying and then game-winning field goals, both of them over 50 yards. Herman, you know what it's like to have a great kicker on your team. Now the Lions, it seems like they got another one. How much confidence does that give an offense when you got a guy you know is going to knock it down in a high-leverage situation?
First of all, we got to figure out we got to get Bates a nickname. Like I know we got Pastor Bates. But listen, you had Eddie Murray, he was money. You had Jason Hanson, we just called him automatic.
Yeah.
And so all right, we got the pastor. All right, that's cool. We can roll with it. PB.
He's
all right.
He's brick salesman. We give it, Gucci Bates.
Awesome. It goes when you can have a kicker that once you cross over midfield, you can become almost like that automatic points. That's what we knew. That's what we're used to. You want to talk about a tool that the Lions are going to have that is going to serve them so well as they go on down the season. They get into these close games. You need those game winners. And also when you get to those where they're really close, right? Close games, guys like that coming through, that puts fear. Because I'm going to tell you, when Texans went for it and they didn't get it,
yeah,
I know those people in the stands had to faint, because if you look at all the timeouts the Lions had, you look at the field position they had, offenses coming back out on the field, they can then take it down to the stretch with a short field. Come on, I'll take that all day.
And Dion, you said something earlier about how you're confident with that second one, because the leg, I've seen Legatron out there as a name for him, because this guy can hit it from 65 plus. So you weren't even worried, even with the 58-yarder.
Yeah, I mean, once the 50-yard I was not concerned, because you see him go out there, and some of those, when they get that far, you kind of get to the point where you're like, oh, there's really nothing to lose here. It's like 58 yards. So, but the fact that they put him out there, we all had seen it in camp. Like, this dude, he had a ridiculous leg. He was very capable. But I think the second one, which stood out to me, is that fact that they kicked it on third down, but it was like it felt so to me. I was like, for sure they're going to run the ball again, but they're going to run some sort of play, just get a little bit closer. And it was almost like one of these things where, like, this game has been a disaster. We have a chance to just end this thing. Just go end it. We don't want to play around with it. We're not fumbling the snap or doing something goofy, stupid. Like, let's just go end this. It's been a disaster. Let's go home. They missed their field goal. And I thought the ability to just be like, okay, we're just going to run the clock completely out. We're going to kick it on third down. That said everything you needed to know about their trust in him.
Yeah. And Herman, you look at this team. We've thrown around a lot of things. Team of destiny has been thrown out there. You go on the road against a first-place team. You're getting manhandled in the first half. You throw 5 interceptions, and you still win the game. What does this team have to be scared of now?
Well, hopefully nothing if they keep facing teams that allow you to come back and win football games.
Yeah.
Having 5 turnovers like that. I mean, listen, man, this is I was trying to think, is this one of those defining games? Is this one of those games that you need within a season that kind of, makes you see that, okay, we're vulnerable. We're not impossible. We've enjoyed the streak that we saw with Goff, the completed passes, the completed consistent passes to St. Brown. The running game's been on point. It's something they've never had to abandon. And in this one, they had to find a way to win. They had to find a way to say, listen, the running game's not working. Passing game's not going the way we want. Man, we're having turnovers and we're really not capitalizing, and we're having some broken plays, or we're getting beat in the secondary. I mean, it was like anything that could go wrong was going wrong.
Yeah.
And if you bounce back from that in that type of an environment, man, that's a defining game. Because we always say, what's a defining game? That was a defining game. That was a defining game.
I love to see it. And you saw it at the end in the post-game interview. They give Jared Goff the speech to break him up, and he's like, man, if that's not an effing lesson, then I don't know what. Because you could tell you saw him when he threw the one in the end zone. He puts his hands up. He was off. Your MVP level quarterback was off, really bad off, and the rest of the team picked up for him. It was amazing.
Let me ask you this real quick. So what do you guys think? Like, the Lions came in, they seemed not invincible, but people were trying to always pick away at that armor. Yeah. Do you think there was some cracks in it a little bit, or do you think showing those cracks but then going, hey, we can seal those right back up is what's going to put even more fear? That's going to stoke fear, because they didn't quit. So I'm wondering, like, they didn't really, in my opinion, they didn't lose anything by having a bad game and having just a terrible first half. But what they gained in the second half, I think, can propel them the rest of the way and make teams think a little bit differently about how you face the Detroit Lions.
We've seen it so far this year, and it definitely impresses me when you look at whether it was losing Aiden Hutchinson mid-game. You take out our MVP contender, our first MVP contender on the season, and we're still going to win. You eject our defensive player of the year contender in Brian Branch, and we're still going to win. Our next MVP contender throws 5 interceptions, and they're still going to win. So it's like death by 1,000 cuts with the Lions, and you see another team doing similar performances like that this year is the 2-time Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. So I hate to say it, but if they don't lose in Houston like that, when are they going to lose?
Yeah, and that was the defense they've gone up against that I thought matched up to all the weapons that the Lions had. They had an answer in the first half. They had an answer for how to stop the short passing games. They were doing combo in and out coverages for St. Brown. They play a little man mix up in there. They were doing show blitz, and then they're backing out of it, trying to confuse the quarterback in terms of his rhythm and checking out of plays and reading hots and all these things. And then on top of that, you're coming aggressive downhill with the linebackers against this running game, and they were attacking our running backs at the line of scrimmage. And if you look at the way they were hitting them, they weren't doing what we've seen in the past, where guys were bouncing off. Okay,
no,
they were coming in, man. They were bringing something, right? And I have to say this last piece, man. Now, then I'm gonna let you get back to. I know you wanted to get to a few things. What do you guys think about those red uniforms, man? Like, I'm gonna be honest. At first, when I came out, I was like, I don't really know. But then, man, when they started swarming around the running backs and coming in like that, I was like, well, damn, that's kind of all right. These uniforms kind of they kind of fire right there, man. That's not bad.
I like them.
Yeah, I thought they were nice. A lot of people, I had mixed reactions on them, but I thought the uniforms were some of the ones that people gone with the color rush, I thought that was one of the ones that kind of popped.
Dion, how you feel about that?
No, they were tough. Those jerseys were tough. And then they got the sweet name too. Weren't they called like their battle something? They're called like their battle jerseys or something.
Yeah.
You already knew like what time it was. Like, all right, it's about to be real. And that's who they were though. Like they represented the jerseys well because H-Man said it, man. When they were hitting some of our backs, like they were playing 110 miles per hour. I hadn't seen a team play that fast against the Lions yet. To the point where it's like in the second half, you're just seeing them like throw out all these different wrinkles that it was like this is not the same team in the first half offensively. We're having to like get deep in the bag to try to find something to kind of almost like slow the pace of what this defense was playing at because they felt like the team that was on the attack the entire first half defensively.
Yeah, Al-Sair, he was everywhere. That kid he used to be in San Francisco. Petrie was making, but they were, like Herman said, that defense was playing fast and aggressive. We got a couple comments here in the chat. I do have a question I want to get to, but shout out to Makai in the Twitter chat. I guess they were at the game with Ed Imagine, said it was definitely a vibe. The movie theater was a great idea. So shout out to everybody that went out there and supported. I saw this in the chat from K Ain't Pressed in the YouTube chat. Shannon Sharp, Uncle Shay Shay, says he doesn't see the Lions going to the Super Bowl.
You did okay. Just real quick on that. Like I saw that segment this morning because I woke up, I saw that segment. This dude's reasoning behind it. I don't know if his reasoning was like, well, if they get injured, who are they going to go to? And he just started naming random positions. He's like, well, if the running back gets injured, who's the next running back? I'm like, all right, what are we talking about here? He's like, well, what if Goff goes down? His reasoning was weak. That's all I'm saying. If you guys have a different take on it, that's fair. But I thought the reasoning was a disaster. Like, what is he saying here? We're just trying to be different at this point.
If I'm looking at what Unc was saying on that is he's going from the standpoint of if you look at a balanced team, there are some, if we saw some exposure in the Texans as they played from in front, they couldn't maintain it. If you're playing a team that offensively, like I don't see you stopping completely in its tracks a team like Baltimore, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's one. Like he's talking, I don't see anyone in the NFC right now that strikes fear or stokes fear. Like I see teams that I think will be problematic on the AFC side for the Lions. I just don't see anyone in the NFC that the Lions can't beat on any given day. And in most cases, those teams got to figure out a way in which to beat the Lions. So I disagree that they can't make it to the Super Bowl. The question becomes, if the Lions are able to play the way they're playing and they continue to play with the vigor, the grit, all the things that we've seen and the discipline, I think they're a tough team to beat in the NFC. And the only question becomes, can they finish it by winning a Super Bowl against one of the AFC teams, which I think will give them greater tasks in terms of trying to accomplish that feat. That's
agree.
what I think. So I disagree that they can't get there. I think that's a little short-sighted because you got to tell me what team that's better that keep them from being able to be there. So if you're saying they can't make it, you're telling me every team in the NFC can't make it.
Yeah. I don't see anybody in the NFC, even like the only team in the NFC I could see really putting up a fight against the Lions in the playoffs is Philly. But we'll see. Nick Sirianni in the playoffs, things get weird in the city of brotherly love over the past couple of years. But something that I do want to touch on, we'll go to Herman first on this one, and then Dion, I want to hear from you on this as well. Keith Jackson in the Woodward Sports chat says, Aaron Glenn went in his bag in the second half. Short fields, elite quarterback, Joe Mixon having a career year, it doesn't matter. No Hutchinson, no problem. Aaron Glenn, are we sure he's not the best coordinator on this team?
Let's start with McDale, man. I mean, the pressure up front was amazing because the fact that they were able, you weren't able to allow the quarterback to get set in the pocket meant that they had a really good plan. If quarterback steps up, he's going to step up into pressure. If he tries to get to the outside, we're not going to let you because we're going to stay wide in containment. And as he tried to step up and find lanes, the one thing that we saw was he was cut off. And then he had to try and redirect, and he just wasn't the same when he was running. He couldn't gauge his throws without being set. And I just think that they came with a brilliant plan. They mixed up the run. They mixed up the times in which they were going to go with man coverage. They mixed up the times when they were going to bring blitz from the linebackers. And, you know, I thought they were going to get exposed with the tight end, which they did a few times playing coverage against the tight ends. But for the most part, they're not just going to go to their tight ends as much as they're going to go to their wide receivers on the Texan side. So they were playing the odds, right? And I thought he just did a brilliant job of doing what we say you have to do as a team at halftime. That is, you have to sit back, you have to evaluate, and great, not good, the great offensive and defensive coordinators make adjustments to what they've seen. They're taking notes. When you see them scribbling stuff down, they're taking notes on these adjustments we got to make. They're counting how many times they're getting beat. And then when they come back in and you see the adjustments take place, no points in the second half.
None.
No points.
Dion, how'd you feel about Aaron Glenn in that defense?
Yeah, but I mean, I think at this game, it kind of solidified what we've been seeing all season long. Like anybody that was like maybe like, okay, I'm not really sure on the deep, like just as a whole, as a unit, what we've seen all season long is that like you were pointing this out, like their ability to bounce back. I mean, look, you go to this game. The Lions really never got into like drop back only mode. They were down by 16. It never really became that game where it was like, let's just put it all on Jared Goff. They never felt like they had to get to that spot because of how well the defense played. And if you look at the numbers after today, pass defense wise, they're basically 1 or 2 in every single category, top 10 in everything. I thought that this game, what it was Aaron Glenn. We know that he has kind of the things that he can live in, and he was doing that in the first half, and H-Man hit on it. Like, he had some wrinkles in there with, like, you didn't know who was going. Here comes Houston. They're bringing 3, and it was like, well, this is unique. But then in the second half, immediately, like, as soon as the second half starts, you're getting different coverage looks that you didn't see one time in the first half. We get an interception on the first play of the second half because we had a completely different look from anything that we gave them. Like, Texans had, if we really think about it, Texans had a couple spot plays where they had a couple wrinkles. Like, that was a nice little adjustment there. Like, the little touchdown that they had on Terrion, you know, the one right before halftime, but we had run the same coverage like 4 times in a row. They had like these little wrinkles that found an answer eventually. They had the defensive pass interference, but in terms of like consistency, there was none. They took away the run game, as you pointed out, so they dominated there, and it feels like kind of the defensive line has kind of became the offensive line for the Lions, which is always like something they can just rely on. It's like their defensive line is going to ball out in the interior now. They just know what they're going to get through that. And then defensively, yes, as soon as the second half started, you're just seeing different wrinkles in there, and immediately it turns into a pick 6. I just think that this defense cementing itself right now is maybe the best defense in football. And I think that it's on that way, and I think this was a game that proved it. Hey, look, man, the bag was Houston had everything at their disposal. They were up by 16 in this game. The Lions were struggling to find any kind of consistency offensively. They had a couple of spot plays, but the fact that you didn't, as H-Man said, you shut them out. To me, this is the best pass defense in football, and they're working towards putting it all together right now for run defensive pressure as that comes along. But this is the best pass defense in football because I think they have no liabilities in the back end. Their linebacker communication has been great. Jack Campbell's taking his game to another level. You're going to get spots, as H-Man pointed out, where like, hey, they got Jack Campbell on the one-on-one on the corner route, or they get Alex on the Dalton Schultz got him one time. But like you don't have consistent answers right now. I don't think enough teams do across the league to be consistently dominant against this defense. I think it's the best pass defense in football, and this game showed that.
I agree. Not gonna lie, I've been calling him the best secondary in football for a week or two now, and I was called a madman. But I love what they're doing. Carlton Davis obviously showed out in this game, but I think the biggest thing in this game compared to the last couple weeks, Herman alluded to it, was how they stopped the run. And a big factor of that was Josh Pascal being back. We saw those stretch outside zones really hurting the Lions, runs like that where you get these defensive ends that aren't familiar or can't set the edges well, and they're getting beat up out there. But with Josh Pascal and Levi Onwuzurike out there playing the edges, they're much better at setting the edge, containing them, and allowing the linebackers to get eventually to the running back by stretching them out and pushing them to the outside. I thought that was really impressive by the defense. And Herman, I know this didn't happen in your career too often, but if a team is shutting down the run against you, what does that force the offense to do?
It just forces you to go into overdrive. The biggest takeaway that I had was you took away St. Brown, you took away the run, and your quarterback was beside himself trying to figure out where to go. And yet they didn't panic. They were frustrated. They knew if you looked at their face when they went over the sideline, it wasn't the opposite of what you saw on the other side. And this needs to be really mentioned, right? And you got a running back, you got Mixon, you got him throwing his helmet. He's getting frustrated. He's not getting the plays are not dialed up right. He's not getting what he needs. Everyone looks a little bit discombobulated a little bit. But the Lions, they were like, we know we need to put this together. We're underperforming right now. Like you could see them taking the accountability taking the responsibility. You don't see coaches over there, huddling up everybody. Let's get the team. Everybody, we got to figure out a way to get this done. They knew what the objective was, and they circled the wagons within themselves, alone on what they were supposed to contribute, and they got it done. I like the fact that they set the edges. They stayed at discipline on that side. I like the fact that they didn't abandon the run when the run wasn't working. That's discipline. And I like the fact that the coaches didn't all of a sudden abandon and throw in the complete playbook on offense and defensive side and said, you know what, we're in trouble. I can tell you right now, I thought, man, this defense, I don't see how the offense gets going in this capacity without making some adjustments. So it was just great to see. But I do want to go back one real quick thing, Spence. All right. You said the best secondary. You felt this was probably the best secondary in the NFL. Now, I will agree with this. I think when you look at the way they can mix it in, and you look at the defensive coordinator in Glenn, I think you can make a case to say from a depth and in terms of really being able to bring some players in and they stepping up when players go down. This team doesn't live and die by superstars, so therefore they can play next man up.
Mm-hmm.
However, there were plays when they were beat.
Yeah.
I mean, they were beat in that secondary, and the quarterback wasn't under duress. There were plays to be made, and there was just they just didn't make the plays.
Yeah.
At least on probably 10 to 14 more points. The same can be said with the Lions in that they gave up too many with turnovers, but the defense stopped them. I mean, you look at the 1 yard line, and they got pushed back. They gave up another 4 points because of their penalty, not anything the Lions did. It was self-inflicted. And then you look at the end, instead of punting and backing them up, and you got 2 timeouts left, and you make them have a long field, and your defense has been really dialed in. Even though they've been beat up on the second half, they knew they had to have one stop. And if they get it back, they may get it back with better field position plus their timeouts. So there's a lot of mistakes that they're going to look at. And I think that is what people will look at and say, yes, it was a great game, but this was a game where the opponent also, again, made some critical mistakes at times that cost them an opportunity to kind of put the game away, because the Lions had them down when the 2 touchdowns could have happened. Okay.
Yeah.
And so this is a whole different game plan, as Dose had mentioned, that the Lions have to go to in the event that you can't just play run, and you kind of nitpick your way down the field. So I'm just saying that to say I understand maybe some of the outside lingering perspective that media and people outside of the Lion fan base may have, and rightfully so to a certain degree. But just the fact that they just did not give up, and the fact that they showed a different gear and a different resilience in doing that says a lot about this team as we start to get down into these latter parts of the month. And then you only still got 1 loss. There's going to be a tough ass team to beat. Pardon my language, everybody. That's going to be a tough team to beat.
They are going to be a tough team to beat, and looking at the defense, I got two more quick things I want to touch on with you guys before we get out of here and let the people go watch some Monday Night Football. But Zadarius Smith, they brought him in here to help out that secondary, to help out that pass rush, to get to the quarterback. He wanted to play. You heard his post-game interview. He's like, man, I really wanted to be out there, but they wouldn't let me. He's like, that's why I love these guys, because they care about their players so much. You saw him already in this game on the sideline with a tablet in his hand, coaching up some of those defensive interior and defensive end guys on the line. That's just another veteran to bring to this team, to go with DJ Reader and Alex Anzalone and Carlton Davis on that defense to provide some real leadership. Herman, what does it mean to have a guy like that come in mid-season and help these young guys on the D-line figure out how they want to get to the quarterback?
If anything, it brings confidence. It brings confidence in depth. It brings confidence in the fact that, again, he wasn't playing. And when you start looking at players that were missing on both sides, but primarily when you look at the Lions side, I mean, this is going to be a tough team. Yeah. It's going to be a tough team to play. This is going to be a tough team in the NFC to beat. And when you have a veteran like Smith, you can bring in that's going to give you that added sense of comfort as a coach, as a team, whether he plays or not. I think just having him available and saying, we need you to have one gear, and that's to go in and disrupt, or that's to go in and play this discipline side and keep containment and force everything and funnel it back in. when you can have that type of thing, that's all they're going to ask them to do. They're not asking players. What I love about this, and I'll be brief on this, is that they are allowing this team to not do too much. They're allowing players to own and command a spot and responsibility within this team and this organization, and they're graded on how they handle that. How well do you play your role? It ain't about stats. And that's removed a lot of pressure. And that means just when they talked about Montgomery and they talked about Gibbs, they didn't care. They don't care who's in the game. What they care about is their impact in the running game collectively, or as the other one comes in for the other. And that's it. And that's what we see in the receiving unit. And I don't think that's a facade. I think it's real. I think the attitude's real. I think that the fact that these guys play together. So bringing in a Smith, as long as he understands what is being asked of him and understanding how not to disrupt the system and make it about me and about what I'm trying to do with my legacy, he's going to fit in well. They just look for dogs. They're looking for players.
Exactly. Deion, what'd you like to see out of Zadarius Smith when he was coaching those guys up on the sidelines yesterday?
Well, I like his eyes. You know, he reminds me of Jason Kabinda a little bit. The guy looks a little bit scary when you look at him, but you always know he's locked in. You know, yeah, you always know. It's like he just drank a couple energy drinks. Just a quick note to what H-Man said, though, there. Like, I feel like this could be, this was popping in my mind, but I feel like what we're seeing, too, is like the fact that they didn't panic to go get help immediately and they were so patient to let it happen. Just some of that could have been through the trade as well. Like, hey, we got to get the right deal here. But I also think, like, it said a lot about their confidence that they threw into the players. As H-Man was kind of pointing out, like, Muhammad was making plays this last game.
Yes.
Like, Muhammad was still out there doing some work. Pat O'Connor, I mean, man, he's like finding a role now. He's like out there on third downs, line up, gets your center. And then, like you said, Josh Paschal was awesome. Josh Paschal looked incredible. So it's like the fact that they allow these guys the room to develop, and instead of like, hey, we lost touch, we have to replace him, let's plant somebody on top of him. And now it's like, okay, you don't really have a role. Like, they've always allowed, I feel like on both sides of the ball, especially on the defense, guys to take their time to fill into a role. They're going to deal with the bumps along the way. And now that it's year 3 of this whole thing, I feel like guys are in a much better spot for the most part. But even like this short stint with the injuries here, like you have dudes that have been given that opportunity and you're just seeing it look better. Like Trevor Nowatzki looks like a legitimate part of this defense. He looks like the answer there for the rest of the season. I would have never thought that. You're like, why'd they keep a roster spot for this guy? And now here he is. They trusted him. But in a lot of senses, right, you make that move and 3 weeks in the year, you're moving off the guy because you're like, okay, that was just a move. But for the Lions, it was like, no, there's a reason we have this guy here. There's a role for this guy. And I think that's unique to them because I don't think every team does that. They have that patience to trust who they've invested in.
Speaking of trust and people they invested in, Herman, I would be doing a disservice to Lions fans, to Lion Nation Unite, to everyone out there that wants to hear your wisdom on this. If we didn't talk about Jameson Williams before we wrapped it up, because he comes back in this game after the 2-game suspension, has 2 just beauty catches. One, he lost the concentration on, but then great concentration to grab it again on the bobble. And then the second one where Goff stuck it in there, a little bit of a hospital ball, but Jameson Williams makes the catch, gets hit by 2 guys, holds on to it. What did you like to see out of the young wide receiver for the Detroit Lions?
He's arrived, and I say this and this. His confidence is high. His position and understanding what he means to his offense is there. He's grounded around people that have the right attitude and mentorship. And the final part I would say on that is seeing him go, I'm going to tell you, as a receiver, seeing a receiver rely on their hands, trust their hands. Even though he bobbled it, he stayed with it, and he knew he was over the middle. He was on the run on a man route, and he still made the catch. The ball is thrown behind him on the left side. He reaches back in slow motion. When you see it, you don't realize the difficulty of the catch that he made on the run, on an in cut, which is tough to catch the ball behind you without stopping. And so I think he's there. Kudos to him coming back. He was definitely someone who was missed. He drew attention with the safeties deep, which made them, again, put everyone on notice that the Lions have big play capability still in the passing game. They have big play capability in the running game. And even Gibbs, man, he almost hit the corner a couple times. And so I the most excited I've been in a while about this organization, this team. We've seen them go through those 2 years of really just battling, and we're trying to figure out, okay, is this for real? This team is real, and the record speaks that they're not playing in a different league. Everyone, this is the NFL they're playing in, and they're not taking any prisoners, and they're playing with great confidence. So kudos to them. Again, kudos to everyone too for in our military family. I want to make sure I say that. You see me in a lot of my military gear and my swag.
Happy
It's
Veterans Day
support,
to all the veterans.
it's to support our veterans, it's to support our men and women of service for this country, and then all those out there and their family members who have served. I want to say they're the brave, they're the honored, and they're the ones that we give the utmost respect for dedicating their lives for our protection and our freedom. So thank you to all of them.
Amen. Amen. My dad served. It's Happy Veterans Day to all of those who are listening, all of those out there who served. It's not something I take for granted. I get to talk about a game for a living. I wouldn't be able to do that if it wasn't for everyone in our armed forces who served for us. And I think that's going to do it for us tonight. We appreciate you all joining us. We see everybody, all the regulars there in the chat. DMAP Zoom, Kent Prest, Keith Jackson. It's Duke, Mackay, JDM, Mark Wickerson. We appreciate you all for tapping in. Lions Nation Unite. Again, I'm Spencer Rexer from the Woodward Heavyweights. That's Dosa Dion up there. And, of course, number 84, Herman Moore. We're Lions Nation Unite. Make sure you smash that like button and subscribe. We got a giveaway, signing some autographed Herman merch out there, some Support the Troops merch. So go check out our Facebook, Twitter pages. You can find all the information you need to win some of those there. But we appreciate you all watching us. Make sure you smash that like button. Go Lions, baby.
Go Lions.